Hey everybody, happy day. So just going to wait a minute before I get started. And did anybody watch our episode on essential or listen to our episode on essential oils yesterday? If you didn't and you are at all interested in essential oils, wondering what the hype is about, or you have things going on in your life emotionally or physically and you're wondering if maybe essential oils could help you, go take a listen to the episode. It was done with Michelle White of Hip Natural Love. And I just happen to have a bottle of essential oil sitting right here. So I'm gonna take some essential oil for myself right now. This is sandalwood, and I love sandalwood. Oh, it's just like the most amazing smell. I just love like woody, warm, vanilla-y kind of smelling stuff. So sandalwood's amazing. It's also great for your skin. I make a serum, like a face serum for myself that I put on every night, and I put sandalwood in that. And it's amazing, super amazing for your skin. So, hi everyone. Just to start off, a little reminder, if you're catching the replay of this and you are wanting to know, there's other ways to listen to what I'm saying today. Some people find this better as an audio. So we are starting to extract the audio from the lives that I'm doing, and we're going to start turning them into podcast episodes. So if you are, you prefer to listen instead of watch, you can hold off until this episode goes up as a podcast episode, so you can take a listen. And just a reminder of what I do and why I'm doing this and why I'm so passionate about this. I am really feeling called to inspire moms, new and expecting moms, but all moms. I think everyone right now is feeling the weight of the world and the direction that the world is going right now. And we absolutely have the power to change that. And we change it through making change in ourselves, and we change it through our kids. And this isn't just the things that are happening in the world today. This is like our mental health, our emotional well-being, our physical health. All of these things, when they're combined and we take really good care to up-level our lives in all these areas, we then can touch our children and we can affect the way that they're growing up and the difference that they're going to make in the world, because they're going to be healthier and happier. Okay, so that's the reason I do this work. That's the reason I'm so passionate about getting my voice out there. And from the messages that I get, the emails that I get, people who are listening to the show, people who are watching the lives, people who are keeping up with me on Instagram, it's resonating. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Right? We know that. So when you put it out there and you're getting it back, like I'm feeding off of you guys. So all of you who follow me, who send me private messages telling me I'm inspiring you or that I changed the way that you thought about something, thank you for that. That's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I truly believe that we can change the world as moms. And it starts with us. So today we're talking about something that is going to affect your emotional and kind of mental well-being. And I truly believe that with this one thing, if we can change this one thing in our lives, that we can essentially change our emotional health and change our lives by adopting this. Now, you guys, if you tuned in a couple weeks ago, you know that I talk about taking things personally and not taking things personally as a way to, as a practice to adopt to kind of up level and change your life. And these teachings come from this book called The 4 Agreements. If you are into self-help, self-empowerment, living a happier, more fulfilled, love-filled, miracle-filled life, I highly recommend this book. This book is based on Toltec wisdom, and it's got 4 agreements in it, basically. So there are these 4 principles that if you adopt these 4 principles and you practice these 4 principles in your life, they say that it will change your life, okay? And I have honestly found this. And this is a practice. This isn't something you read and you put away. This is something you want to keep by your bedside, refer to over and over. I bought this book, it's over 10 years ago, and it actually looks brand new. It's like I haven't even, there's like no creases in it. I take really good care of my books, but I keep this book by my bedside. It's small. It's easily readable. It's simple. It's succinct. It's straightforward. Hi, Erin. Yeah, I went blonde. Thank you. So I highly recommend this book if you are into this, up-leveling your life, up-leveling your mom life, becoming a happier person. This book is fabulous, but if you don't have time to read the book, that's why I'm here. Hi, Casey. Thanks for joining. So we talked about not taking things personally. Today we're talking about the cousin of not taking things personally, making assumptions, okay? And this is one of the agreements in the book. And it basically says that with this one agreement, you can completely change your life when you stop making assumptions. The other thing I want to just point out to you guys before I get started, and where I get some of my inspiration and my learning from, for those of you who don't know, I'm doing something called A Course in Miracles right now, which is this big bad boy right here. You may have heard of it if you're in the meditation kind of spiritual world. You may have heard of A Course in Miracles. It's a pretty complex and in-depth, and the lessons are daily lessons that you're supposed to keep up with, and there are 365 of them. So, you know, if you apply one lesson a day, it takes you a year to get through it. I'm already behind because I take my time going through the lessons. So I'm not going to finish in a year, but here's the basic idea behind this book, and you'll see the connection of what I'm talking about today once I explain it. The basic idea behind the course, or A Course in Miracles, is to strip all the things out of you that made you who you are today, which essentially is your ego. So when you're born like this blank slate, right? And then your environment and your parents and how you're raised affects all your thoughts about the world and how you perceive things. The idea behind A Course in Miracles is to basically get you back to the one thing that you're born with, which is love, and get rid of everything else. So strip you of all of those things that are thoughts in your head or that are perceptions that you've made for yourself or that others have made for you, so that you can get back to being authentically happy. That's kind of the, if I had to sum it up in like a few sentences, that's the idea behind A Course in Miracles, is just to remind you that nothing is real except for love. Everything else is just your perceptions and your thoughts. So that's the idea behind The Course in Miracles, and it covers just a gamut of things in that realm. And I'm doing it because I just felt called to do it, and I'm super passionate about getting through it, and I'm learning a lot. So I love being able to share this with you guys. The interesting thing is, when you start getting into this world of self-help and self-improvement and trying to be a better person, and you're reading books like The Four Agreements or things in Toltec wisdom, or in any other self-help area, it's fascinating to find that they're actually all saying the same thing, right? At the end of the day, the idea behind becoming a happier, healthier, more whole, loving person, the basic idea behind it is all the same, which is that we have been raised in an environment that has caused us, put all this stuff on us, and we're wearing this ego that has become us, and the idea behind like getting rid of all of that and getting back to happiness is just shedding all of that. And that's really at the core of what Course in Miracles is, and what all this other self-help stuff is, right? It's going within, shedding all those things that are not real, and just getting back to love. So that's my little blurb on what the course is and how this is all connected. So today we're talking about assumptions. And so I'll start off by saying this. How often do you make an assumption about something? You know, you've probably done it about 20 times today already. I think that making assumptions is the root of all evil. And when you make an assumption, you are affecting so many other things. But the most important thing is where it starts, which is in your mind. And when you make an assumption and you have a thought about something that you don't know for sure, but you're guessing, it starts this like ripple effect of all these processes in your body, right? And the idea behind not making assumptions is to rid ourselves and our world of that evil and that hate that exists now, because so many people are making assumptions about everything. So what's an assumption? An assumption is anything that you have as a thought in your mind that you don't know for sure to be real. And that's it. And how often throughout the day do you make an assumption about something that is just thing in your head. It's not real. It's just something you're thinking. Okay? It's a thought. It's not a real thing. But you have the thought, and it could be about anything. You can make an assumption about a person, a situation, something happening with your child, something happening with your husband. Maybe there was a party that happened that you didn't attend, and you're making assumptions about what happened at that party or what was said about you, or name it. You name it, you've made an assumption about it. And what happens is, and this is what A Course in Miracles teaches as well, is that thoughts in your mind are not real things. It's not a tangible thing you can hold. It's just a thought in your mind that you've made up. And we all know that the mind is such a powerful thing. So when you have a thought in your mind thinks it's real. And it sets off this domino effect of all these physiological processes in your body. And this is where stress comes from. And this is where anxiety comes from. And that's just the stuff within your body, not to mention all of the problems that making assumptions cause in our relationships with people and in our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with how we view the world and how we see things. And so by eliminating assumptions from your life, you also can eliminate judgment, which is the other thing that we're trying to get rid of when we're trying to up-level our lives and move into a life that's more full of happiness and love and joy, is eliminating judgment. So you eliminate judgment, you eliminate those physiological processes that happen from making assumptions and having that thought in your mind. And you're instantly bettering the relationship that you have with everything and everyone around you. Okay, so does that make sense? You guys with me so far? That making assumptions are just a thought. They're not a real thing. And this you can get really deep with this when you start thinking about thoughts. And A Course in Miracles teaches this as well, that anything that's not happening right now is not real. So what happened yesterday, you're ruminating over something that happened yesterday, that's just a thought in your mind. That's gone. Okay, that thing is done. What you're thinking is your reality in your brain, but it's actually not a real thing. You're making that up in your head. Same with tomorrow. Tomorrow is yet to come. An hour from now is yet to come. You have no idea what's going to happen, right? It's just a thought in your mind. And again, you're letting it affect you in the moment. So the idea behind the Course is to start to live in the present moment and not let thoughts dictate your life. And assumptions are thoughts. And as moms especially, how often do we make assumptions, and how often do we allow thoughts to rule our brain, especially new moms, right? Your baby's crying. Why is your baby crying? He's unhappy, he's cold, maybe he's sick, maybe he's coming down with something. All assumptions, all thoughts in your head, not real. But they're causing physical stress in your body. When you're having a thought that's in your head, it's causing a physical stress in your body. It's raising your cortisol levels, which cause all kinds of havoc in your body. So the idea here is to stop making assumptions and stop having thoughts that are not based on reality. They're based on something that you've made up in your head. Now, everybody has probably heard this, but I'll just repeat it. There's been tons of studies done, especially with elite athletes, where they will have they'll have two groups, right? They'll have the athletes who are elite athletes at a sport, let's say gymnastics or hockey or whatever, you name the sport. And they do this exercise where one group of the athletes will continue to practice and, do their practices on a daily basis every day. For a certain period of time. I think, they've done it all the way up to months. And then they'll have another group of the same athletes who don't do the physical practice. They just envision it in their mind. They envision the movements, whether it's playing hockey or doing gymnastics or whatever it is. They're envisioning the movements and they're running through them in their brain. And what they have found is that at the end of the time, there is no difference between the athletes who physically practiced and the athletes who just did it in their brain. There's no difference in their performance because your brain thinks that your thoughts are real. That's how powerful your brain is. So that's why this is so important to make that connection, to know that when you're having thoughts in your head, your brain thinks they're real and they cause a physiological response in your body. So if we can stop this, if we can stop making assumptions about everything, all right, we can completely up-level not just our emotional wellness, but our physical wellness. I can't tell you guys, and this, hey, I'm not perfect at this. Like, I'm still working on this, and I have been working on it for a long time. I'm getting much, much better. But how often have I made an assumption about something that has sent me into a tailspin? It's happened a lot for me, right? Like, something happens, somebody says something, somebody does something. I try calling my husband, he doesn't pick up the phone. Maybe, something, I find a dish in the sink, like whatever. It could be anything, and your mind starts to go, right? Your mind starts to, it's like assumption. It's when you really start to be aware and mindful of it, you're going to think to yourself, wow, I do make a lot of assumptions. It's just human nature. We do it. I'm not talking about the big stuff, like making assumptions about what someone said about you, or making assumptions about, I'm talking about just the little everyday stuff. Like, I can't tell you, almost every day I pick my kids up from school and I ask them how their day was. And, they're 5 and they're recounting their day to me, and it's not always completely accurate. And I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened. But how many times will your child tell you something that happened in school or something that they did, and you're instantly on the assumption train, right? Like that, my kids have only been in school for like a month, and it happens to me almost every day. I feel my blood pressure start to rise. I feel myself start to get anxious because now I'm making assumptions about what happened at school, or what's he trying to tell me? What is he saying? Well, why would your teacher do that? It's all assumptions. Everything is an assumption. It's just a thought in my head that's not even real. And it's amazing how it physically affects you. And this can physically affect your relationships with people. How often have you sent somebody a text message and they never responded? You weren't really sure about sending the message in the first place, and then they don't respond, and you make an assumption that you pissed them off. And then you walk around with that heaviness all day because you're like, oh, I must have pissed her off. And then a few days later, that person responds, oh, sorry, I never responded to you. I just completely forgot. Right? And meanwhile, you just spent the last 3 days ruminating over that text message that you sent because you're not sure if maybe you upset somebody by it. There's a million examples like that in our lives. And I think as moms, especially when you become a new mom, I think this happens because how many assumptions, A, do we make about our babies, and B, about everybody else? Right? You're looking at another mom and what she's doing, and you're making assumptions about what her life must be like. And how often do we let that affect us or get to us? And again, cause physical stress and anxiety in our bodies because of it. And hey, you don't have to be a mom to practice this, right? If you are somebody who thinks you're going to become a mom one day, this is a great thing to eliminate from your life now, because physical stress and anxiety on your body just does nothing but cause havoc, and it affects your children as well. Not to mention in pregnancy, if you guys haven't already heard of it, there's a great documentary that just started. It's called Broken Brain. It's fabulous. And they talk about all this research that's come out now showing the effects of a mom's physical and emotional well-being while she's pregnant on her children, not right after she delivers, but years down the road, 40, 50 years down the road. They are now learning that when you are pregnant, whatever hormones are going through your body, right? The cortisol goes up. If you're in a state of flux all the time, you're anxious, you're stressed out all the time when you're pregnant, that is affecting your child down the road. That is how powerful this stuff is, right? So we want to do good by our kids, and we want to keep our kids healthy and happy. It's not just about, if you're a mom right now, doing this for yourself and then doing this for your children. This is about even in pregnancy, or if you ever plan on becoming a parent, just being aware of how your emotional and physical well-being is going to affect your kids years down the road. You may not even be around when this affects them, but it will affect them. So that's why it's so important to get a handle on your thoughts. Okay, so there's a couple of things. If you guys have any questions about assumptions, go ahead and pop them in the comments. And I also want to talk here about judgment, because judgment comes from assumptions, right? Actually, I'm going to go to the course first and read this little passage to you because I thought it was really powerful. Because what happens when you make a snap judgment, or not even a snap judgment, maybe it's a thought that you've had after ruminating over something for a long time, but you made a judgment about something. Judgments are often the result of assumptions and misinformation. And this is definitely an area that, I say I haven't mastered assumptions yet. I would say I have come pretty close to mastering judgment, because it becomes like a muscle. When you start to notice that you're judging, and you do it, it's like everything else, meditation, anything that you do that's like a mental thing, the more you do it, it becomes like a muscle, the better you get at it. And judgment is something that over the years I have really worked on. Everything from, you see somebody walking down the street and she's dressed a certain way, you make a snap judgment, what that person must be like, what their life must be like, what kind of work they must do, whether they have kids or not, right? We do it all the time. And I'm not perfect, right, by any stretch of the imagination, but judgment is something I've really worked on, to know that my judgment often comes from an assumption that I'm making. So the assumptions still come naturally. I'm still working on those, but the thing that comes next, which is the judgment, which is easier to let go of, I have really worked on that. And I can honestly say it is a very rare occasion now where I will ever judge, because I know that I don't have all the facts ever about anything, right? I can only truly make a judgment when I have all the facts. So I don't make judgments on things that I don't know anything about ever. And then I'm still working on the next part of that, which is the assumptions. But this is a really powerful thing from A Course in Miracles that I'm going to read to you about judgment. And, again, judgment comes from assumptions. In order to judge anything rightly, one would have to be fully aware of an inconceivably wide range of things, past, present, and to come. One would have to recognize in advance all the effects of his judgment on everyone and everything involved in them in any way. And one would have to be certain there is no distortion in his perception, so that his judgment would be wholly fair to everyone on whom it rests now and in the future. Who is in a position to do this? Who, except in grandiose fantasies, would claim this for himself, right? So it's saying, who in the world possesses all of that they can actually say that they can fairly judge, which is so powerful. Nobody has that kind of power. Remember how many times you thought you knew all the facts you needed for judgment and how wrong you were? Is there anyone who has not had this experience? Would you know how many times you merely thought you were right without ever realizing you were wrong? Why would you choose such an arbitrary basis for decision making? So it goes on, but I thought that was really powerful, just to say that none of us are really in a place ever to make judgments, and often judgments come from assumptions. So, have really worked on the judgment. I think I've come really far. Assumptions, still working on. They're still sometimes just an automatic thing that pops up. Whenever you have a feeling of anxiety or a feeling of stress, like your blood pressure is going up or you're feeling anxiety about something, that is it's a result of something that's happened, ask yourself, am I making an assumption right now? Okay, that's a great way to kind of start to catch yourself. If you're one of those people like me, I am an anxious person. I come across confident and outgoing, but actually, I can be very much an introvert, and I can be very much riddled with anxiety, just depending on what's going on in my life. So now I've learned, when I start to feel that, or when I start to feel the weight on my shoulders, or I start to feel the anxiety rising up in me, and it's coming from a situation that I don't have all the facts, I will ask myself, where am I making assumptions right now? And that goes everything from relationships to, your marriage, to your relationships with your family and your friends, to your kids. Where, if you are feeling that way, are you making assumptions? And you'll often find that there's so many things that can go, yep, that's an assumption, that's not real, this is just a thought in my head. So by just starting to do that, you can really start to get a handle on some of those feelings that start to build up in your brain. So this is from the 4 Agreements. and it talks about assumptions specifically. And we talked about taking things personally, and these are closely linked, right? Because oftentimes you'll take something personally because you assume that it's about you, but really it's not about you. So we talked about that as well. So it says, all the sadness and drama you have lived in your life was rooted in making assumptions and taking things personally. Take a moment to consider the truth of this statement. The whole war of control between humans is about making assumptions and taking things personally. Our whole dream of hell is based on that. We create a lot of emotional poison just by making assumptions and taking things personally. Because usually we start gossiping about our assumptions. Isn't that true? Like, how often do you repeat information or gossip based on an assumption? Like, that's your personal opinion. That's an assumption. That's not a fact. So it's really interesting once you start to really dig into this stuff and you relate it back to your own life and you think, yeah, I do that and I do that and I do that. And that's not real. That's not real. All these things, these thoughts we have, they're not real. They're just thoughts in our head. So, they go on to give examples about different ways that you make assumptions. The example he gives here is if you're walking down the street and you pass somebody who smiles at you, right? They smile at you, you smile back, and then you're thinking about that person. I wonder why they smiled. I wonder why they were looking at me. Maybe they liked what I was wearing. Maybe they're having a good day. That seems like a happy person. I wonder if she smiles at everybody. She probably smiles at everybody. Like, every day, all day long, we are observing things and we're seeing things happening. We're making assumptions about them. And then, it goes on talking about making assumptions in your relationships. This is another way we can up-level our lives. Ladies, if you're in a relationship with your partner, your husband, whoever, how often do we make assumptions? Well, he should already know I'm thinking that. He should already know what I meant by that. Well, I didn't mean it that way. You should know that. Assumptions. Like, once you actually, stop watching today, once we shut this down, start to think about where in your life you make assumptions, and I promise you will be astounded at how often you are physically responding to something that's just a thought in your head that's not even based on reality. Okay? So, and then making assumptions about ourselves. How often do we make assumptions? I don't think I can do that, or I can do that, or I can take that on. Again, it's just a thought in your mind that's not real. It's based on false information, right? So that is it for today, talking about assumptions and judgments. Now, all we can control is ourselves, right? That's why I do this. I want to share what I'm learning with you guys so that you can start to apply this to your own life. You can't control other people. Other people are responsible for themselves. If you know people are making assumptions about you or making judgments about you, this goes back to taking things personally, right? How often have you heard, or it's gotten back to you through the grapevine, that somebody said something about you that wasn't true, or they made an assumption or a judgment about you and it bothers you? You can't let that get to you either, because now you're taking it personally. And people are responsible for their own growth in this life, and I can't be in control of assumptions someone is making about me. I would say that the solution to all assumptions is communication and conversation. So never make a snap judgment, never make an assumption without conversing first. Ask questions. That's the best way to get rid of assumptions. Ask, communicate, and if it's coming back to you that someone's making assumptions or judgments about you, I would say do not give that life. You just keep on growing and doing your thing, and other people are responsible for their thing, and you can't take that personally because it's not about you, right? And this is what we talked about last week with the mirror, right? Like, I am your mirror. What you think of me is actually what you think of yourself. So if you're making a judgment on me or you're making an assumption about me, it actually says a lot more about you than it does about me. So that's it for today. I really believe, guys, that this one agreement of getting rid of assumptions, starting with judgment and then moving down to assumptions, can elevate and up-level your life in so many ways. You're going to start catching yourself doing it. You're going to start to notice when it creeps up within you, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. And it really does result in a much more calm, less stressful you. And that's what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to become happy, healthy, whole moms so that we can parent from a place of love and happiness and not stress and anxiety and making assumptions. So just doing this one thing is going to completely up-level your life. So I don't see too many comments or questions coming in. I listed off the books that I'm getting this from if you guys are interested. And if you have any other questions, please private message me or pop into the comments. And like I said, if you prefer to listen to podcasts while you're working out, I love podcasts. I think they're a great way to consume information. These lives are going to be repurposed into podcast episodes so you can take a listen. And that's it for today. So thanks for tuning in, guys. And for all of you who follow me and you're messaging me, I'm really feeling the love. And that's what keeps me going doing this. And I'm really confident that we are going to make change to become happy, healthy, whole mamas, mind, body, and soul. And we're going to change the world through moms. Okay, so thanks for joining me. And we will see you guys next time.